Hello, welcome to the channel.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I did.
Bibles, Babies, and Banters.
Thank you. Welcome to Bibles, Babies, and Banter. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Sarah.
Today, Sarah's going to be giving her testimony on her journey with God, which will be much different than mine because she grew up in a Christian home. Mm-hmm. So I am definitely interested to hear the differences.
If you missed it, Cassie already shared her testimony in our last video.
Bye.
We will link the video to Cassie's testimony if you want to check that out as well.
And if you're not already, like this video, push all the buttons.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
My thumb is weird.
I have double jointed. Are you double jointed?
Maybe. It's like flat.
Yeah, you're double jointed.
Look at that.
I've never met another person that can
Weird
do
thumbs.
that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home. When I was 5 or 6, we were going through a hard time. I think my dad had lost his job. And obviously as a kid, I didn't know the impact of that. But I remember we sat down on the floor as a family in a circle. And my dad just started praying. And it was one of the only times I'd ever seen him cry. So looking back and, now having a child and knowing what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, now I know like what he was going through.
Yeah.
But that's one of my core memories is just seeing my dad pour his heart out to God and just trusting him.
Yeah.
Because I remember he said something like, I don't know why this is happening, Lord, but we trust you. And that stuck with me even as, 5 or 6 year old. So I grew up with just that example of faith. Our family has never been like wealthy or anything. So there's been a lot of hardships and a lot of struggle and a lot of just trusting that God's going to provide. Because I went through that as a kid with my parents and with their example of faith throughout that, when that happened in my own life, having to, provide for myself and work and live paycheck to paycheck, it's because of that example that I was able to just trust that I'd be okay. And even to this day, now having a baby and having left my 9 to 5, it's just my husband's income. So it's stressful and things are a little tighter than they used to be. So we're kind of, again, entering that phase of like just needing to trust because I'm starting my own business, 2 businesses, and we're currently in that stage of having to trust that God's going to provide.
He has a plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that I was called to leave my job. I know that that's something that he wanted me to do. As scary as it is to not have that income, I am really happy to be home with my kiddo.
So how did the relationship with God change as you got to be older? Like as a teenager, did it change at all or did it stay pretty consistent?
I think I was 5 or 6 when I accepted Jesus into my heart. I kind of knew what I was saying and the meaning behind it, but I was little, so the depth of it definitely changed over the years. We went to church throughout my childhood, and I got baptized when I was 11. At that point, I was old enough to really understand. I was homeschooled until 5th grade. I grew up on a ranch, and then we moved to an actual town, and I started going to public school, and that's where I kind of had influences of other kids, and things kind of went a little south for a while. I remember the first time I said heck, and I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty. And I was like, I can't believe I just said that. Who am I becoming as a 5th grader? And so middle school and high school kind of,
A slippery slope.
a little bit. When I was 16, we moved to Montana. I was away from my friends. I didn't know anybody. Had to go to a whole new... Yeah. I had to go to a whole new school. Bless you. And that's where my anxiety developed. I'd always had anxiety, but it was nothing like having to go to a brand new school and not know anybody at 16. And I ended up dropping out of high school because I was sick all the time. So I dropped out, did some homeschooling, kind of, sort of. And then eventually we found a online high school, and I finished high school that way. But when I was 17, we were living in North Dakota, and we were in another new place, still didn't know anybody. It felt like all my friends were back home having fun, hanging out with each other, going to college, doing all this cool stuff, and I just felt stuck and alone. It was during that time that I got really low, and I was feeling very alone and kind of abandoned. And I was a little mad at God for moving us, and kind of blaming him, because my relationship with my parents was very quickly going downhill because I just wanted independence and I didn't want to be told what to do anymore. And I've always had a really good relationship with my mom, and watching that kind of go downhill was hard. So I decided I needed to leave, and I moved out. And I was still kind of mad at God. So when I ended up back in Washington, I kind of decided just straight up, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. And I actually prayed and was like, I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to follow you. I don't want to feel guilty for having fun and blah, 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 blah. And so I just walked away, walked away from God. I made some really dumb choices. Eventually, I moved to San Diego and moved in with my best friend, Rachel. She's kind of a tough love person. She kind of set me straight when I got to San Diego. Because I was still kind of, especially going to San Diego, I was like, ooh, fun town. I'm going to have some fun. But she didn't really let me. And looking back, I'm grateful that she didn't, and that she was my conscience during that time. It's funny because before I came back to God, it was kind of like, I just didn't want to disappoint her. Because I knew if I made certain choices that she would have something to say about it. So I think living with her for those first few months was kind of what got me back on track. And then her husband came back from deployment because he got injured. So it was the three of us for a while, and they wanted to find a church to go to. So we all went together. And I remember the first Sunday that I went to that church, I told them that I would go with them Saturday night. But Sunday morning, I was like, I really don't feel like going. And Rachel, being the tough love person that she is, was like, no, you said you're going, and we're going. So we ended up going to church, and I was a little, grumpy about it. But I wasn't going to mess with Rachel, so I went to church. During that whole time in my life where I was choosing to ignore God, there were constant convictions. He was constantly pulling on my heart and reminding me that he was there. And even though I was making that choice, deep down, I didn't want to. I didn't want to make that choice because I knew that I needed him, and I knew that I could not have a good life without him. But I wanted to try. I wanted to make mistakes. I wanted to have a story to tell. And for whatever reason, I thought that I couldn't do that as a Christian. And that's part of the reason that the story of the prodigal son is my favorite, because when the son came back, the father did not care that he had left, that he had said what he said, and he was just so happy that his son came back. And we do that in our daily lives. As Christians, we're walking this path with Jesus, and every day, multiple times a day, he's got to stop and he's got to wait for us to go on our little stupid detour, chase the stupid butterfly, and come back to him so that we can continue walking.
We're his toddler.
We are his toddler.
Oh, no. Terrible
And
tease.
he is so much more patient than we are.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was in church that day, it was like he was standing on that path and he just kind of looked at me like, so you done yet? And I was so tired at that point of making mistakes, and I was tired of just feeling guilty all the time and having that spiritual warfare. There was a flyer in the bulletin that day asking for people to join the worship team. And I was kind of like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to be part of the church. I'm going to surround myself with good people. I'm going to jump in head first and come back. And it was hard because I was battling well, you don't deserve to come back. You straight up said goodbye to God and went on your own path. So you really think he's going to let you just jump back in?
So I have a question then, right? Because then, because you were living in San Diego and that's when you met Chris. Was Chris a Christian when you met him, or were you his journey to Christ?
So he was a Christian. He just was new to it still.
Yeah.
He didn't really know much about it. Some of his friends had taken him to church.
Yeah.
And he had connected with a specific Bible verse and made that decision. I believe this. But, he was also in the Marine Corps and living his young life. And so us coming together
probably strengthened it for him.
Yeah, it did. Because I was involved with the church. So when we met, he started coming to church, to be with me. And it wasn't until a few years ago in our marriage that we really started pursuing God together as a couple.
Involving it in your marriage.
And it always was. It was there.
But it was just on separate sides, not together.
Yeah. And it wasn't something that I felt like I could push him to do more.
Yeah.
I knew that he had to come to it on his own.
Right.
When he got out of the Marine Corps, we moved to North Carolina. We hit a very hard, rough patch in our marriage.
So did you guys start involving it in your marriage before or after this rough patch?
Before, because we were both involved in the church.
So do you feel like that helped you through the wilderness of the rough patch?
Yeah, because we had a foundation together, at least.
He is the solid rock on which we stand.
Oh, yeah. And he is the only reason that we got through that. Because that was a time in my life where I had to lean on God constantly throughout the day. I was in a constant state of prayer. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't have my husband, and I needed God to bring my husband back to me. And our faith was definitely the foundation, thankfully, that got us through it, because we had agreed so early on that divorce was not going to be an option no matter what. We just had to get through it, and it took a lot for us to get through that first year, and we're still working through some stuff, but we are so much stronger today than we would have been had we not gone through that. And as hard as it was, as terrifying as it was, as heartbreaking as it was, I am so thankful that we went through that, because it's almost like our relationship was kind of surface until we went through that.
No, really?
Oh, yeah. It was too perfect.
Yeah.
In a way. Because our story is a fairy tale. And so going through that brought out the real and a deeper connection than we ever could have had otherwise. When we were in North Carolina, that whole 3 years, we were trying to get pregnant. But at the same time, those 3 years were the first 3 years of us going through our situation and going through the roughest part of our marriage.
That would have been too tough.
That would have been way too much to put a baby into all that.
Oh, yeah. Because children magnify everything.
Yeah. We just kind of had to trust in his timing. And there was a part of me that was so afraid that I wasn't able to get pregnant. I got to a point where I was terrified that I would never be able to have a baby. I was seeing so many of my friends from high school and just friends in general posting about being pregnant or on their third kid, and I just felt like something was wrong with me. And then a little bit after we moved here, I ended up getting pregnant. It was an answer to prayer, and it was kind of like God saying, see, you just got to trust me.
So, that my come to Jesus moment was my son. Mm-hmm. How powerful, already knowing God's love and having him be in your life, how powerful was it to have your baby and hold him for the first time and get to know that, that love?
It was intense.
That was my moment when I just realized that I can't even imagine how much more powerful it would be knowing the lengths of Jesus and God and everything, and then it just being everything you've learned just hold up into one little beautiful package and blessing that he's given you.
Yeah, my dad used to tell me growing up that he was looking forward to when I would become a parent to finally understand his love for me, but more importantly, God's love for us. Because you just love your children no matter what choices they make. You just love them. And as they're growing up, they're making mistakes. They're
Finding their own paths.
They're making choices you might not agree with. And that's how it is with us and God. We, like you said earlier, we are his toddlers.
Yeah.
We are chasing the little butterfly, and he's always just waiting there for us to come back and
Take his hand and go on.
yeah.
Do you have a Bible verse that you resonate with?
There are two that I always go back to. I've always leaned on and gone back to throughout my life. When my husband and I were going through our situation, we had finally gotten to a point where we kind of came together and committed to fixing it, no matter what. That divorce was not an option, and that as hard as it would be, we were going to work through it. And I had always loved the verse, Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope." And I clung to that after everything happened, because it was the only thing that reassured me that I'm still in his hands. Like, even though this is happening and it is not at all what I wanted to happen, and I was terrified of what was going to happen, knowing that his plans are not to harm us and is to give us hope really resonated with me, and that really got me through our whole situation. And I have that tattooed on my shoulder now, just kind of as a reminder, because that verse has always been one of my favorites throughout my life. But
Yeah.
that time in my life was
More powerful.
oh yeah. The other verse that I've always kind of leaned on was Proverbs 3:5-6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight." And that one kind of hit hard after I came back to him, because it's kind of ironic that that was one of my favorite verses, and then I would literally read that and be like, nah, I'm gonna go my own way.
I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah. Now it's just something that I lean on when times are hard, and it's hard to see where things are going and what's going to happen. It's just trusting that God has a plan, and if we acknowledge him and ask for wisdom and guidance, then he's going to guide us.
If you could go back and tell yourself one thing when you were coming back onto the path, what would it be?
Get over yourself. You're not perfect. God doesn't expect you to be perfect. So just get over yourself and follow him. Because deep down I knew that my life would be so much better if I was following him and if I was listening to him instead of ignoring him. But I was just naive and I was angry. I don't know. I think I wanted to prove myself to myself, and it kind of backfired. So I saw a video the other day that said you don't clean your car before you go to the car wash. You don't wash your clothes before you stick them in the washing machine. And you don't clean yourself up before you go to church, before you pursue God. That is why you pursue God. He will clean you up.
And make you whole.
And make you whole. He meets you where you are, no matter where that is, no matter how bad you think you messed up. That is the whole purpose, the whole reason that God sent his son to save us. It's because we are imperfect, because we make mistakes, because we need him. Our stories are just ways that we show his goodness. It's ways that we show how he works in our lives and his power and his glory.
So at the end of the day, if you're new to this journey, if you've been on this journey for a while and you've had some rocky patches, God is here with you. He sees you. He knows your heart. And you just got to keep walking back to him. He will be there to meet you where you are. Till next time, mamas.